Hello again, everyone. This is Joe Henches with Beyond the Chart, and this is technical analysis of the stock market today. Today is the weekend edition, actually. So today is Saturday, March 28th, and we will take a look at the indices the way we usually do, look at our indicators, a few more ETFs on the weekend, and then the 5 stocks we're going to look at today are CREE, Canadian Solar, Delta Airlines, 3D Systems, and Electronic Arts. Okay, so we're going to get back into this, and then just wanted to remind everyone, if you haven't checked this out yet, I've got a special training video on stops, and it's you can get to it by clicking on the training page on the web page on the menu there. So it's easy to get to, and take a look at it, see what you think. I think you'll find it helpful. All right, let's go ahead and take a look here at the Dow, which is up 34 points on Friday. So not a huge move, and it's a little bit of an inside bar. Okay, so this looks like a pause to me, and it's, you know, it's almost the market's way of saying, oh, okay, I've been down 4 days in a row, I'll give you an up day. Now we can start counting all over again. So we'll see. You know, we've broken this trend line, and you know, this looks negative to me. I mean, we've taken down here. I mean, as I've mentioned before, you know, the charts and trading, it can always morph into something else, so you have to be aware of it. This is my best scenario in terms of what I'm seeing right now, and it just, you know, it looks like it's breaking down out of here, especially how fast and how quick this moved in here. Let's take a look at the S&P 500. Similar type thing. Again, it's broken down through this trend line, and this is a trend line from October. Okay, so that's pretty solid little trend line. It's got 3 data points on it, and now we broke right through it, and here we are kind of hugging it. Okay, and a lot of times it'll do that and then continue to move on down. So, you know, where are we trading? We're trading below the 55, the 10's below the 21, the 21's starting to decline. So the short-term trend is down. Intermediate and long-term is still up, but we've now closed below the 55, kind of like what we did here. So we'll see whether we continue to get follow through. New York, the NASDAQ. Okay, so here's same thing, same trend line that I just drew on the S&P 500. We got on the NASDAQ, and NASDAQ held. Okay, so it bounced up a little bit. But again, I look at that as nothing more than a little bounce. And we got to watch to see what kind of follow through. We had this is a big move right here on Wednesday. New York Composite. Now, this one, I haven't changed this count in here because the wedge picture isn't as clear on this deal. Now, maybe if we back on out, it's just, you know, kind of messy. But again, look at a lot of overlapping. All right, so I don't know. We'll the wedge. I'm going with the wedge picture I'm seeing on the S&P 500 and the Dow. Russell 2000. You could almost make the case that we got a wedge in here if you drew a line from here. Again, this is the trend line from the March 2009 low, and it becomes clearer when you look at the on the weekly. So again, nothing. I think this is just a little bitty bounce that we're getting right up out of there. On a weekly basis, you know, the wedge is still a little clearer, but it's not. The picture's not exactly the same as on the daily but you're still getting a little bit of a wedge look and feel to the pattern. And the close here, did we close below the previous week low? 17,697. No, we didn't. But again, this is almost like a reversal bearish engulfing. It's not totally engulfing, but it's I know that there's a name for this on candlesticks. I just can't remember what it is. But anyway, I mean, just, you know, strong move to the downside. Let's take a look at the S&P. Same type picture that we're getting right there. New York Composite, similar, although didn't quite come down and encompass all of the bullish action of the previous week. So not quite as negative, which is kind of interesting. I mean, there for a while, the New York Composite was the most negative, and then it became the most positive, and it's hard to tell. Let's take a look at the Russell 2000 weekly. And again, here's this trend line that's very, very clear. I have not touched this trend line. I've kept it in place for months and months. And so here it comes right up and touches the trend line again and then pulls away, pulls back down. So it's just kind of hugging the trend line. And while it's doing it, well, we're not getting divergence on the RSI, strong divergence. A little bit, if you're looking at the blue line, that's what I'm looking at, because blue line is the buying pressure. You can see that the two peaks on the blue line were here and here, and that is not confirming this move that we're seeing on a weekly basis. So that's one out of the two there is negative. The reason the demand index is not showing is because the demand index uses volume, and I don't have volume on this weekly chart on the Russell. All right, let's take a look at the indicators. The short-term trading index. Okay, the short-term trade, the 10-day on the short-term trading index is rising again. Okay, so last few days it's been rising because of the selling pressure that's going on. You know, we popped up here, had a closing trend of 1.76. Let's take a look at the VIX. CBOE volatility index. Okay, so we had the pop, a 2-day pop in here with the strong selling, and then we pulled back some. Actually pulled back more than I thought we would, but we're still... it broke that trend line. We'll see. It's starting to make a move. It looks like it's trying. Now, we didn't get the follow through that we got over here. Remember, I talked about this on Thursday, that this was looking similar, but nothing ever plays out exactly the same. Just, it can be similar, but it just doesn't repeat exactly. Okay, now let's take a look at the high-low oscillator. Okay, here's the McClellan oscillator that's right in here. So it's pulled back. Let me make sure I've got the most current data. And yeah, now see, sometimes this data just doesn't update correctly. So, a little bit of a bounce with the market bouncing. So we've gone from what it was, a minus 70, about 74. Now we popped up a little bit. So we're still below zero. This is the oversold. That's why it's green, because you're getting down into buying opportunity, buying territory, and up here is red because it's getting overbought, which means you need to be cautious that it's going to be going down, danger zone. So right now, we touched this back in early March, and we haven't gotten back down there yet. So in terms of selling, is the market really, really strongly oversold right now? No, it's not, even after that move of this last week. All right, the next one, and the last thing I'll mention here is the 10-day put-to-call ratio is 0.66 on the equity put-to-call, so it's not at an extreme reading either. All right, let's take a look at the high-yield bond fund. So the high-yield bond fund is kind of just kind of pushed sideways for the last week, with this action in here. You could almost make the case that it's kind of rolling over a little bit. Let's look at volume. So this move, let me get my thing. So here was the peak down here. So this move from here all the way up into here, so rally, 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 rally up in here, has been going on with declining volume. Last time something was that dramatic was kind of over here, where the volume dried up on this move, and then we rolled over a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see, do we roll on over? And the other thing I'm noticing here is a little bit of potential short-term top, which could mean, again, if the high yield bond fund is dropping, that's risk off. And usually that means it goes in sync with this stock market. That risk is going off in the stock market, and people are selling and getting conservative. Okay, so that's why we kind of watch the high yield bond fund. All right, let's take a look at the 20-year long-term bonds. Okay, TLT. So TLT, a couple days of down, then we get the bounce. So we're kind of mirroring the stock market a little bit here. The stock market going down, the stock market bouncing. So here's the short-term bottom on March 6th. Let me go back to the Dow. and the bottom here was the 11th. So the bonds bottomed and turned up, and then the rally here on the peaked on the 23rd, which was Monday, and this peaked one day later. So it's close to being in sync, and sometimes the bonds and the market will go in sync, sometimes they go opposite to each other. I'm not quite sure that there's any real rhyme or reason there. I mean, other than, again, if the market's focusing on long-term interest rates, then they're in sync. And all right, now we'll take a look at the dollar. Okay, so the dollar did this pull back down here, and Thursday, a little bit of reversal to the high side, and now it, going ahead, a little pause yesterday, but this almost looks like a reversal, putting it in a little bit of a low here, and I'm almost wondering whether it's going to be intermediate wave 4. And I'd been talking, I remember I drew those lines down and then up, like one more move. That could be what we're about to get. So I'm going to be putting a 4 down here, probably with a question mark. And let's take a look at oil. Okay, so United States 12-month oil and USL dropped on Friday after this spike. So we had this spike up, and oil, remember, jumped like 5% or something like that, the big move, because of Saudi Arabia bombing Yemen and the civil war turmoil in Yemen. So unsettling the markets, but then everybody's like, oh no, I guess we got a lot of oil sitting around, so let's sell it back off. So that's what happened. All right, we'll take a look at gold. Well, the other thing I wanted to point out here too is look where that rally went to on Thursday. If you take this dotted line, which is the bottom of where this channel was supporting, and you extend it out, lo and behold, selling came right back in right there at the bottom of that channel. So once it broke through that, once this support was broken, support became a ceiling, at least so far. Okay, so gold, GLD, gold shares ETF. So this has had a pretty good little rally, bounce back. I'm still counting this as an intermediate 1 down. So we're working an intermediate wave, or minor wave 2 up. So minor wave 1 down, minor wave 2 up. That's the count I'm going with. And we'll just see how far, see if it gets back up through this congestion. You can see it got up into it, and then it's turned back down, at least on Friday. We'll see whether it continues to push higher or not. So that's the current scenario on gold. All right, let's take a look at now some of our kind of our economic ETFs, I'll call them. Semiconductors. Semiconductors bounce back, big bounce back over the last 2 days, and I got to view that as that's exactly what that is, nothing more than a bounce back until it comes up and takes out this high. I mean, you could say, well, maybe we have a little 5-wave action, and now we're getting a little A, B, C, or we're going to get another move to the high side. That is a possibility, but only confirmed when it takes out up in here. So right now, how far did it bounce back? If we look at this, the little rally has bounced back not quite 61.8%. So a little over 50%, but probably about 58 to 60% of the down move, it has bounced back. So that's where we're at on semiconductors. Next one is the home builder. Okay, so the home builders, as I mentioned before, have not sold off nearly as much. They look like they're getting ready to rally again, actually. I mean, why do I say that? Because I see the 10 crossing above the 21 in here, and I start to see a potential swing move happening. So if I take a trend line and draw it across the top here, I could see how a potential, cup and handle type thing might happen. If you have this and this. Now, of course, what you got to have is you got to have further follow through up here and break this trend line. So that's what we'll be watching. So that's kind of interesting. And probably because, the long-term interest rates, are staying low. Okay, the next thing is XLF, the financials. Okay, so the financial area looks like it's breaking down, and I talked about how I thought I saw a large Head and Shoulders top on Goldman Sachs. I still think that's playing out. This has broken this short-term trend line. It's coming down to this longer-term trend line, which is in sync with the trend line on the S&P 500 and the Dow. And so the Dow and the S&P 500 have broken that. This hasn't quite gotten there yet, but you know, it's still moving down, and I think it did go to a lower low here, low 23.78, low, yes, so slightly lower than this low. So we'll see what kind of follow through. Again, this looks like pausing type action to me. All right, the next one is the biotechnologies. IBB, biotech ETF. All right, so this got slammed. And let's see, here we are, the last 5 days this week. Okay, so this was last Saturday. This was the Friday, a week ago Friday. Okay, I talked about how I thought this was at an extreme, and that when this has been at an extreme before, it hasn't really stayed there all that long, and that it's had one heck of a move. And then it gets slammed down in here pretty hard, actually, breaking down through below the 21 all the way to the 55. And now we get a little bounce. So the moving averages are still aligned. We don't have the 10 crossing below the 21 yet. So this is the real challenge in here is, are we just having a little bounce, or is this getting ready to try to resume? But we'll just have to watch and see. Let's take a look at the indicators. Now, the one thing to know, I remember looking at this on the RSI. So this got so strongly overbought up here at 83. Okay, so a lot of times that's a confirmation of a trend, although I like to see that and say that when that's happening early in the trend, and this is happening late in the trend, in my opinion. Now, sometimes when you're up here like this in a bull move, the RSI will bounce between like 80 and 40. Well, that's what it's doing. And then when you're in a bear move, it bounces between like 65 and 25. Okay, so right now it came down to 40. And it could be getting ready to bounce some more. So we'll, just have to kind of watch this. All right. The next one, last one here, we'll take a look at is XLE, the energies. And hopefully I can find the energy select. There we go. So again, this is just chopping sideways. Again, it's just, kind of in sync with oil. Pull back a little bit in here. It's having a hard time getting it going. I mean, again, it had this false breakout, pulled back down. You could, one thing it looks like, I want to draw a trend line as soon as I start to see these little pivot points that are just jumping out at me like this. And so we'll see whether we're getting some consolidation and we break back down on through that, which is totally possible. Okay, let's take a look at the stocks. So we're going to jump in and take a look at CREE. Okay, so CREE looks to me like it's chopping sideways, all right? And it just, with this kind of sideways action, it could be just within these little parallel lines. And then, just like what I just drew on the energy sector, you notice how, and I'm going to just mention something. The other day, I had this on the screen, and I was on the other side of my office, and I was doing something on the other side of the room, and I happened to look back at the screen, and all of a sudden, it just hit me. I hadn't even seen this little potential head and shoulders here, and I remember thinking to myself, "Wow!" Now, sometimes, it just helps to stand back and take a look at chart. Sometimes it helps to zoom out. Sometimes it helps, to step back about 10 feet. Just kind of look, what does it look like to you? What's the trend? What is it doing? And, you get so focused, I'll get in looking at the trend lines. I thought this was looking a little negative in here. I almost issued a trade idea, and, I probably should have. And then it, rolls on down and it breaks this trend line. So this looks like it's at least heading to the bottom of the channel. We'll see if we continue to get that follow through. All right, the next one is Canadian Solar. And here we are. And Canadian Solar. Now, the interesting thing about Canadian Solar, this does look like it's rallying, and it does look like, I think we've done a big corrective move. Now, the real test, again, as I've mentioned before, is corrective action a lot of times is contained by, lines, parallel lines and trend lines. And this trend line hasn't been broken yet. So let me just pull it out over here a little bit. Now, this hasn't been broken. And one thing I'm noticing on this up in here. This could be the end of a first move, you know, if it's trying to go that way. We're getting divergence coming in. So I would say a word of caution. I'm not saying sell, I'm not saying go short, but I am saying I'm seeing, you know, divergence coming in on all of the indicators. Okay, so bearish divergence coming in, not confirming this move, which would mean to me that maybe we're going to get a little bit of a pullback, and that could be all we're going to get. But that's my caution about what I'm seeing in here right now. And let's see, the next one we're going to take a look at is Delta Airlines. And there we are. Okay, and Delta again is just chopping sideways in here. It does look like I think that this was some kind of ending, expanding diagonal. That's my best picture for this fifth wave. I don't think that this is like a wave 1 of 5 and here's a wave 2 and going 3. I don't think that this wave 5 is going to be that big. I mean, that's my best assessment right now. So the one thing you're looking at is this is starting to trend down because this went to a lower low, lower high. This is a lower low than this. I looked at it earlier. This is a lower high. Now we've got another lower low. So lower lows and lower highs means the trend is to the downside. And the intermediate, the 21's below the 55. The short term's kind of whipping around a little bit, but so I'm cautious on this. I don't have any, this could be nothing more than a little bounce. This hasn't gone, as oil has tried to continue to go lower or whatever, this hasn't really like taken off. It's almost like it's had its move. So I just don't have any better assessment on that other than it looks pretty choppy. 3D Systems is another one that's just chopping around, and it's trying to put in a bottom down here, I believe, but I'm not getting a good picture of what that is. I mean, here was previous support down here. Thought that was coming in here. Thought we were again parallel lines on the corrective action, and it just continues to just, you know, like here, just pull right back down, and it just chopping around right now. So we'll just have to continue to monitor and see if something develops. Now, the last one we're going to take a look at is Electronic Arts, which is one that I've just added. There it is. Just added to my list that I'm looking at, and this is kind of intriguing. I'm going to look at putting out a trade idea on this. This looks bullish to me. This looks like a bullish little move short-term wise, and then also I think it's in a fifth wave. And let me step back and show you what I'm talking about. So I think we've got a primary wave here, 1, 2, and I think we're working a primary wave 3. This isn't big enough to be primary wave 3 in terms of the way I'm looking at it, because all of a sudden this wave, it becomes longer than this wave, and 3 can never be the shortest wave. Okay, so then that ruled this out being 3, so then it makes this an intermediate wave 1 of 3. So I think we're working a third primary wave that is not complete yet. As a matter of fact, I don't even think we've completed intermediate wave 3. So what I'm looking at when I look at intermediate wave 3, here's the 5 waves within it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this was a fairly short 5, but this is really interesting that it seems to be holding the channel fairly well. So what I'm thinking is, let me pull this down a little bit. If you project this out to the right, that I'm looking for, now here you got, you know, we're working a fifth wave, right? So what we'd be doing is we put up here is where I expect 5 to happen. Okay, and right now here's 1, here's 2. We're going to be working a 3, and then sideways 4, and then get up here to 5. So if I had to target and estimate, where do I think we've got to move at a minimum is up here around 64, 64 and a half. And it actually may extend and go beyond that and throw over this channel, just because, you know, looking at some of the early wave Fibonacci projections based off of wave 1 and 2, And I think there's a good chance that it could even throw over that channel. So that's my assessment on Electronic Arts. I think it looks bullish in terms of where it's at and the move it's doing. So we'll kind of go from there. All right, that's it for the weekend. So if you're watching this anywhere besides my website, head on over there, check it out. Make sure you check out that special training video I've got for you too. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe. It gives you access to the Trade Ideas webpage and gives you the free PDF, The 5 Essentials. So until next time, stay focused, follow your plan, and trade without fear. Have a great weekend, everyone.